Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. My name's Kurt with the Kurt Locker, and today I am absolutely blessed to have Chip, who also known as Figjam Exerciser, Chip Burti on YouTube and Instagram. Chip, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate you having me.
Now, I appreciate you making the time. So, for those of you that are watching, about I don't know, 2 hours ago, I sent Chip a text message saying, "What are you doing in 2 hours?" And he replied with, "I guess I'm going to be podcasting with you." So he knew exactly where that text was going. I'm happy to have you on. So I want to talk a little about a couple things. So one, I want to like get to know Chip Burti. Who is Chip Burti? Talk about gym equipment reviews. I want to talk about the Instagram and the transition to YouTube, and then of course training, future plans, and then anything else that we might discover along the path. But before we get going, I do want to make a quick totally shameless plug for Home Gym Con 2025 happening in Louisville, Kentucky at the end of June. It's an amazing opportunity to get to an area with a bunch of like-minded people, talk home gym stuff, and there's 114 days from the day that we're recording this. There is over 100 vendors. It's massive. It's absolutely massive. I've been there since year one, and I've been excited every single year, and this year I am just absolutely on cloud nine. Use code KL10 at checkout. That'll give me a little bit of a kickback, which, by the way, that does work on the premium ticket options too. That money gets rolled right into the strongman competition that I'm the meet director for. And I don't take anything home from that. Like, I don't take any cash home. All proceeds that basically go above covering costs go straight into the EOD Warrior Foundation, which is a 501c3 charity that supports all four service bomb technicians and the families that love them. So, with that out of the way, Chip, can you give me the elevator speech? Who is Chip Burti?
Well, first off, again, thanks for having me. I did want to shout out one thing. I was thinking about this a few days ago, actually, so this is pretty good timing. I went back and looked. The very first video of yours I ever watched was when you did your initial overview of the LT trolley arms on your Monster Light rack, the old blue Monster Light rack in your old garage gym. And I was like, this guy's got some pretty good stuff. And I'm pretty sure that's when I started subscribing to you as well. I think that was like 2019, maybe late 2018, somewhere in
Man,
that time frame.
I think it had to have been 18 because I've talked about this. I think I actually talked about it in that video. It's been forever. And by the way, the quality of the videos has gotten so much better.
But first thing I noticed was the mustache has gotten so much better.
Yeah, well, I got older. If I look at pictures of me back when I was like 2018, even like that assignment aged me. You know how like you see a president go into office on day one, and then on day 60 they look like they've aged 5 years. That assignment aged me quite a bit, and it's just made it fuller and it looks better. And it's funny. I actually grew the mustache on my way to that assignment in Texas, and it did it as a joke because I moved in March, mustache March, and it just kind of stuck. Like it just never left. But yeah, I was one of the first 300 orders or whatever the promo was. I
Yep,
got them for like $100 or two
I
hundred
remember
bucks or
that.
something, and absolutely mind blowing. I remember I was actually it was I guess we'll just get personal with it. When I sit down and I've got to go number two, that usually involves a little 5-inch screen stuck in front of my face to occupy my time. And I just happened to have to go number two right as those things went live. And I remember my internet was spotty in the bathroom, and so I actually like kind of pinched it off, if you will, and wiped real quick and ran outside. I think that my trousers are probably still not all the way up, and was quickly like hitting the button to place the order. So
Nice. Well, you
you
know
got to
what's
take
interesting
those.
about that video? I actually went back and looked at it this afternoon because again, I was like, when was that? But that was my first experiences with a true like call out of the differences between the Monster versus the Monster Light line. You know, because I guess Coop had done a review on his that he had on a Sorinex rack, which again is going to be the Monster equivalent. You had the Monster Light rack, and it was little things like the trigger and the
Mhm.
pop pins not working as great on the 5/8 inch holes. You know, things like that. That if I fast forward again, this kind of transitions into your question. Fast forward into 20 late 2020, early 2021. So I guess end of 2020, we sold our house and decided we were going to buy and build. Excuse me. We sold our house, decided we were going to build. In that process, I had a conversation with my wife. I said, I want to sell almost all of my stuff and buy a new rack in the new house. And she was like, okay, let's do it. So again, did a couple of things. It's not as much stuff that I had to move. Sold my rack, plates, my old barbell, a few other things, all for like $800, which I probably could have gotten twice that for during the COVID times, but it was to a friend. I didn't have to worry about getting mugged in the parking lot of the mall. I mean, it just was great. Some of these Facebook market deals, you meet a stranger, even at a public place, you feel a little bit sketchy sometimes. So I got to help a buddy out, and was less stuff I had to store and move, yada, yada, yada. But in the planning process of building out Home Gym 3.0, which is where I'm at now, I was back and forth. Do I want Monster? Do I want Monster Lite? Comparing costs, comparing features, what's the best way to go? And even then there was, it's twice as much now, but there was a plethora of information. I mean, you could really just go down the rabbit hole, any one particular thing. Basically, we sold our house in October of 2020, and we moved into this house in October of 2021. So it was almost a year that I had to plan. I placed my order about 6 weeks before the house was scheduled to be completed because I knew that, at that point, even then, road was kind of catching up, but the shipping was still going to be a while. But I basically had a year to plan out. I used the Rogue Zeus builder.
Yeah, the Zeus
builder
is awesome.
I had probably 8 different iterations. I love it. I probably had 8 different iterations of how I was going to, do things. And that was really helpful for me because, again, as we were building, I started with blueprints, right? But then we actually, when everything got framed, then I could start actually measuring distances. So then I could take my Zeus builder, go back to that and say, okay, well, the blueprint said it was going to be this distance. It's actually, off by 2 inches. Let me make that adjustment. Now this is where the rack's going to go, et cetera, et cetera. So again, I know you and I talked before. I've really nerded out on the planning process. I'm trying to figure out what I wanted, where I wanted to put things, all that good stuff. Oh, that's actually a great call out right there. I love that. That's what you pulled up. That picture in the middle on the left. So so that is in the bonus room. We actually lived with my in-laws for a year while we were building our house. And that was my temp setup. I put all my barbells in storage, sold my rack and plate, sold a few other things, kept the power blocks, flat bench, and the Echo bike. Had some bands and some other miscellaneous stuff tucked away in that bag in the corner there. But what's really interesting about that is, again, take another step back further. When I first started my home gym in 2013, all I had was a set of power blocks and a fitness gear adjustable bench and no pictures to prove it. That was just not something that was on my radar at that point. But that's the same set of power blocks that I still use today. So they're 12 years old at this point.
So I picked this era on Instagram because this seems to be the transition period. This seems like bonus room, old rack, old weights, right? So these are your old weights. And then right up here, this looks like the new space. This looks like your current space. But it's interesting because there's no rack. I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, this is your current space, right?
Hang on, I'm losing you a little bit, Kurt.
Oh, sorry, Chip. You got me?
It's a little bit choppy.
Yep. Sorry. Yeah. So I chose that. I stopped sharing the screen just in case that was hogging up the bandwidth. Is that better?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Yeah. So I chose that because that seemed to be like the transition period. I could pull it back up if we need to. But yeah, that's like the old room, the bonus room, and then the new space just with no rack right away. So from there, yeah, those power blocks, it's amazing. So are those still somewhere in the gym behind you right now?
Yeah, they're not behind me. They're over here to my right. They're right under the TV on one wall on the same stand that I bought 12 years ago as well. Again, I did a lot of upgrades in this gym build, but the adjustable power blocks, they only go up to 70 pounds. But for the way that I use them, that's plenty because I'm using them for accessory work. So, for example, I'm going to squat or I'm going to bench. I'm going to use a barbell. By the time I get to dumbbell work, I'm not pressing more than 70 pounds on an incline dumbbell press after, heavy bench session.
Not yet.
So not yet. Well, I keep saying that, and it's funny because I keep saying that, but I figure if I ever get to the point where I can, bench 300 pounds and then go and hit 3 sets of 15 on 70s, maybe then I'll think about upgrading. But until I get to that point.
I mean, 70s will take you pretty far. So you ended up going with the 1-inch rack then. That was the final decision. And what were like the key points that
Yes.
got that?
Great question. So for me, it was, if you look at a lot of the hacks that I posted over the years, that was the main reason. It was taking leg rollers, the monster leg rollers, and being able to have a lot more functionality with those. Looking for pulley systems, ended up going with surplus strength. I know you're a fan of that as well. That was just a better, the 3x3 1-inch like modular system. I feel like it just gives you a lot more options. The Monster Line rack is great. I mean, you can get just as strong on that. It's not about being safe. It's just, for me, it's about functionality, versatility. How much more can I do with what I already have?
Yeah. I mean, that's always been kind of my opinion as well. I actually put out an opinion video like last year, I think, and it was just like, hey, Monster, although it's more expensive, or 1-inch holes, although more expensive on the front end, will save you or at least save me anecdotally a headache on the back end. And it's funny how people will hear that and they'll assume that it's from a safety perspective or from some other perspective of like has to do with strength, right? Like the strength of the lifter. And they'll say, well, you can get just as strong off of a wooden or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that. It's just whether you're doing hacks, leg roller attachment stuff, and your Instagram is full. I'm going to share the screen again. Your Instagram is absolutely full of using like the attachments. You're always using the rollers. You're always using the attachments. You're always doing more than what the rack essentially was intended to do, using it as a roller coaster ride for your kiddo, all of that. So you're doing that. And that's why it's valuable. And also something I'll note too, we'll get to YouTube in a bit, but I've enjoyed watching your YouTube because you did a review on the UPS, and after you did the review on the UPS, you started doing a couple training vlogs. And what I liked about how you did training vlogs is that they were kind of like in the moment. So you have a mic on and you're talking in the moment as you're transitioning pieces from piece to piece, transitioning and setting up different movements or whatever they might be. And I think for a lot of people, they spend so much time, or they might look at your setup and be like, oh, well, that takes way too much time to set up. But you're doing it in real time on the channel, which is something that I've just really admired and appreciated.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, I think, so, I mean, try not to go too far down the rabbit hole of training unless we want to, but when you look at rest times, specifically for, power, strength development, you're looking anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes between sets. I typically, when I'm training, I'm shooting for the 2-minute mark. If I'm going to be testing or maxing out, or going for a much heavier single or double, maybe I'm going to stretch it to 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, but anywhere in that rep range, that rest period range, that's your target, right? Well, you can do a lot in 2 to 3 minutes between sets over 4, 5, 6 sets of a main lift regarding getting prepared for the next set of exercises so that, you're resting, but you're not completely just losing that time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always trying to think through that too. It's usually around my second, if I have 3 sets, it's on my second set in between that I'm like, all right, let's start setting up for whatever's next. But again, just kind of showing that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
when you started Instagram, if we scrolled way down to the beginning, it seemed like it started off as more of a personal Instagram and then maybe transitioned. It's kind of hard to tell because the first picture is of you and your wife. And then and of course it's like my wonderful wife, which wives are the best.
And my baby was there. My firstborn was in that picture too. Yes.
Yes. And there's some awesome photos that are clearly not photoshopped of you and you're playing rugby with the baby in your arms. Yeah.
Yes. Got some like catching him.
Yep. No, those were good. And there's some trash talk meme of rugby versus other sports. So it seems like rugby was kind of a thing for you. So you played rugby as a full-fledged adult.
Yeah, I did. Until I played till I was 35 or 35 and a half technically. But most people, when they retire, it's around that 35 years old mark. And that was kind of my goal. Timing on that worked out really well. And that's kind of where, when I retired, quote unquote, in the spring of 2017, at that point, my kids were still fairly little. My wife was getting ready to go back to school, and at that point, we had been out in this area, which was about 45 minutes from where the club practiced and played. So it was really just a good time for multiple reasons for me to kind of step away from playing full time. I had to take on a lot more responsibilities while my wife went back to school, which I didn't mind doing at all. Again, the kids were probably 4 and 1, roughly, 5 and 2, somewhere in that range. So not super little, but not old enough yet to really be self-sufficient. And so when I retired from playing rugby, that was when I really kind of started going down the powerlifting rabbit hole. I started doing what I called my Get Strong for Nothing program.
Yes.
Because I wasn't planning to compete, but I wanted just to kind of see how far I could take powerlifting just recreationally, in the home gym. I think it was either that year or maybe the year after that when I bought my first set of knee sleeves. Started doing 5-3-1, really just like embracing it. Elite FTS Table Talk podcast was just on constantly on my phone, and I was traveling for work on the road. It was always in the car with me. So I really absorbed a lot of information at that point.
Yep. Hey, circling back real quick, I did stumble across this one on the gram. So look at this.
Cool
that lays out pretty good. I will say that your table for your power blocks, it looks like you got a big old cart. That's probably just the cart that the power blocks came with during that, though. That's really cool.
That's what Rogue had available. Again, for me, it was just what is going to take up that space, because I already had the power blocks in the smaller compact stand.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that looks good. I like that just translates really nicely. So I actually use Zeus Gym Builder, and that's because I do like hobby 3D CAD. Like, I'm really bad. People that know how to do Fusion watch me do Fusion. Like my father-in-law, he actually understands how to do CAD. And he has no hair, but he still somehow manages to tear hair out watching me. And so then he'll usually tell me what to do. Like I remember when I CAD'd a power rack and I was doing the vertical holes, and I started one at a time doing the holes on the rack and measuring 2 inches up. Hole, 1 inch, 25 millimeters, 50 millimeters up, another hole, 25 millimeters. And he's just like, stop. Like we can do this better, because how many holes are on a rack? So
yeah,
no, that looks really good. And I use Zeus Gym Builder all the time because it's just easy, and you can actually customize the size. So a lot of people maybe don't realize that when you're using Zeus Gym Builder, you can actually customize the height, length, and width of any single object that's in there. So if you have some custom thing, you can actually size it to be appropriate to what you have.
Yeah, it's definitely fun. Definitely a very cool tool. So one more thing I was going to call out on the kind of the transitioning from more of a personal Instagram to kind of more of a fitness-based Instagram was Basement Brandon was kind of a big influence on me, which is funny because Gluck has called me Budget Brandon before, because I went with the RM5 power rack. I have no hair, all that good stuff. But that was back in the time when Brandon was doing a lot of posting on his training logs. He still does it now, but I feel like back then it was probably more relevant. And so I kind of like followed in suit and said, I'm going to start doing 531 and I'm going to start posting on Instagram and just see how things go. And then again, that was back when I was using the Titan T2 power rack, which again, talking about getting strong on, anything.
Yeah.
It worked.
It sure does.
But I can say I have a lot more fun with my monster rack and all the accessories that go with it.
Plus that color is definitely a theme with you, that nice green color. It's got to be the right green.
It's got to be the right green. It's so funny.
So did your Instagram start as Figjam Exerciser, or did it start as something else?
It started as Figjam Rugger.
Rugger. So rugbyer, rugger?
Yeah, so rugger, yeah. And then I think it was about a week or two before I was going to post up my new setup with the new rack and everything. I kind of had a feeling that it might pop off a little bit because I had talked to Matt Pendergraph, Basement Brandon. I think I might even message you possibly. I can't remember now, but I know who it was. Nick Gills at Home Gym Hangout. I drove those guys insane asking questions about the monster rack, just trying to dial in exactly what I wanted to get, what I wanted to order. I was doing one big order from Rogue. Again, I had a lot of stuff, as far as barbells, but when I got to the new space, I ordered a new rack, new plates, all the, accessories to go with it. And full transparency, I took advantage of $1,000 or more orders ships free. It was one of the situations that actually, at that point, if you ordered a rack, everything shipped for $75, but they still did the $5,000 was free shipping. So I was like, oh, well, I'm just under $5,000. So let me just go and spend another $100 to save the $75 on shipping. Why
it's
not?
Like finding money, man.
Right. Exactly. It's so, what do they say? It's so cheap, you can't afford not to do it.
Exactly.
But
I mean, that's what all the ladies say at Target.
Right. Exactly. But, I had a feeling that the page might pop off a little bit just because I was going to tag those guys in it. And so I went ahead and made it public, and I changed the name from Figjam Rugger to Figjam Exerciser. And then the tagline is, I used to play real sports. Now I'm just trying to be the best at exercising, because in Eastbound and Down, the line where he's like, you're not the only athlete here at Jeff Davis. I'm doing a lot of swimming, biking, running. It's like, no, actually I don't. I play real sports. Yeah. I'm not trying to be the best at
exercising. I play real sports. Exactly.
And Kenny Powers. A line that my buddy, that was a line that my old teammates and I used to always say to each other all the time. And so,
I mean, it is funny because it's funny because it's like I don't know, like all humor is based in some reality. I'm not going to say the word.
Sure.
Yeah, truth.
You can say
reality. Truth. Yeah. Don't cancel me. Don't read too far into that. No, but yeah.
No. But I mean, because the joke is like, like it was actually, I think the meme that you were talking about was rugby versus CrossFit.
That was
no disrespect to CrossFit, but that was kind of the running joke was, you should do CrossFit. Oh, actually, I play real sports. I'm not trying to be the best at exercising. But so then again, like I said, I tweaked up the tagline a little bit because now I don't play real sports anymore. I am trying to be the best at exercising. Figjam Exerciser was born.
Nice. So just kind of owned it. But when you played rugby, obviously you trained, right? Because those first videos of you training on the T2, like you're decently strong.
Kirk, it's kind of I don't want to say it's a sore subject, but it's a little bit of a sore subject for me only because of my lack of discipline. I didn't train the way that if I could go back to being 25 again, I would have trained a lot differently than what I did.
Man, we all say that stuff though.
I know. I just did. It was a lot of leg press. It was a lot of bro splits. And because I played rugby pretty much year round. I mean, it was 2 nights a week during, the week, games on weekends. We have a fall season, a spring season, summer sevens. And so I really just my training was always kind of choppy because at the time, I didn't know how to program sport specific training to work around the sport that I was playing. So, again, if I can go back and do it again, I would have been much more structured in how I programmed around the season, in season, preseason, all those things that fall in line with that. So, but to answer your question, yeah, I've always been pretty jacked. Just kidding.
I've always been pretty much the best at everything.
Well, so I did competitive gymnastics from when I was 8 until I was 18.
Okay, and so like tumbling or what specifically?
All 6 men's events. So high bar rings, floor, vault, pommel horse, parallel bars.
There you go.
Yeah. So
my uncle used to do that stuff, and his grip was intense.
You really?
Oh.
That kind of set the foundation of, I guess, my athletic background. And then when I went to college, I started playing rugby. And so then again in college, if I could do things differently, I would have trained differently. But I had a lot of fun playing rugby and drinking beer. But
yeah, you wouldn't be the person you were today. Yeah, I was gonna say it's all give and take. Man, some of my worst experiences in life, I always got to kind of look at them and just say, you know what? Did you die? Because they're foundational, man. So let's transition a little bit here. So I would ask you when you started YouTube, but that's kind of like a blasphemous question because if you go to your YouTube, you have been doing YouTube since about 3 years ago. And this is it right here.
Very loosely.
Very loosely, yeah. Not too much, but it seems like, kind of a tour. And if I'm not mistaken, because like I said, I did creep you out just a little bit before we started this. This quickly led into you being one of the cool people featured on this. So yeah, you got to basically have your gym. And is that this video that we're watching, or is this one of the other ones?
So that video there, that is
Rogue equipped home
That's
gym. Oh,
Rogue's
yes.
video. So I'll give you a little background on that. Rogue reached out to me. Was that 2023?
That's a good question. Does it say?
I think it was 2023 or
Gotcha.
very early in 2024. Essentially, Rogue was doing this thing where they sent out, I guess, Instagram direct messages.
My name
to
is
lots of
Chip.
people.
Sorry.
It's all right. Does it have a date on that? Now I'm curious.
That's what I'm looking for. I was going to open it up in YouTube. Forgive us, everybody, while I stop sharing this screen. Or no, is it showing? There we go. Stop sharing. This is 1 year ago. Wow. Okay. So 3 years ago, you make your first tour
Okay.
video. And then 1 year ago, you get featured by Rogue Fitness. So they actually sent a crew out to like.
No. So that's what's cool. So they sent me a DM on Instagram, and they sent several other ones because I saw other posts. They said, "Hey, if you're interested in doing this, here is a list of criteria. You need to shoot this shot, this shot, this shot. You need to answer this question. You need to feature at least 10 pieces of Rogue equipment in your gym. Send us all the raw footage. We'll review it, make sure that it meets all the criteria." And then they actually sent me a $250 gift card, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And it's really good for them because for $250 today on the Facebook page, Home Gym community Facebook group, I posted the hack that I did this afternoon, and somebody commented, "Hey, you're that guy that I always see on my YouTube ads from Rogue from North Carolina." So for $250, they've got basically, marketing material. It's shot by real people. They just have to do the editing, which is not. I mean, I don't say it's not hard because you and I both know that there's something that goes into it.
Yeah, it takes effort. But to chop
But
something up and make it feel authentic, I mean, that's what that looked like.
Yeah. So that's the whole story behind that. I think it was really cool, especially when I first started hearing people were actually seeing the video. So that's how I got my wedge and extra band pegs and a few other things that had been on my I want to buy list, but I don't really want to spend the money on it right now list.
Yep.
So
I have one of those lists as well. It's an Excel sheet. It's the one I reference and people are like, "Do you want to buy my thing?" And I'm like, "No, because here's your thing and it's number 6. Number 1 is here."
Right.
So I am curious though. So
and every time
go ahead.
I was just say every time you add or get something off the list, that's money that's not being banked towards that number 1 thing.
Well, yeah, and then it ends up being on the YouTube side of the house. It always, not always, that's not fair, but it very commonly will end up being something not gym related, like a microphone or a camera, or you need a thing. Or for me, it's like the throwdown at Home Gym Con. I've got to take vacation time, and not that I'm not appreciative, but I got to take vacation time and like go get equipment and put stuff around. So it always seems to be that silly stuff, and it makes me mad when it's that stuff. But I did want to ask, so this is what I've noticed about content creators, and I was just curious if you had thought about this. This is how it starts, or at least this is my anecdotal story and what I've kind of looked out and watched. When you start a YouTube channel, you go off, you buy the stuff that you've been dreaming of and that you can't afford at that time. And then you're like, you know what? Someone from a different channel is not doing the equipment reviews I want to see done, or I have other points I want to make. And so I'm going to review everything I own. And then I'm going to start spending money to buy more things because I ran out of things to review. And then I'm going to quickly get not underwater into debt, but like it's very difficult to maintain because one a week seems to be what people kind of expect as far as videos. So do you have a plan to be able to handle that? Now, I noticed you do some training, but like, what's kind of your angle? So are you going to kind of follow that model, review what you got, and then what's your other content plans?
I think that's the goal. When I decided, I guess it was really just like 2 weeks ago when I was like, I think I'm just going to give this YouTube thing a go and just see what happens. I understand that it's a long game, that it's a long process. To actually like monetize it and make any money that's worth your time, it's going to be, several years. Like it's not going to happen in a couple of weeks to a month. Like I get it. But you have to start somewhere. I mean, if you don't start, you'll never get there. So I posted on Instagram on one of my stories saying, "Hey, I'm going to start doing reviews. What do you guys want to see reviewed. And most of the responses were things that I already have in the gym. There were a couple of VTS lights, and I was like, I can't afford that right now. They're calling out, things $800, $1,000 items, and I'm like, I'm going to hold off on that right now. But most of the things, were things that I already had in the gym. And so I kind of looked at those responses and I prioritized my list of these are going to be the first 10 things that I'm going to review. So I've got the first 10 weeks planned out. Prioritize, I guess, is a better word. There's a couple of things in there. Like, for example, it's later in the list, so it's probably going to be in the next couple of months. I'm going to do just a short video comparing the surplus strength Vex speed pins, which are phenomenal. I know you have a set or two, I'm sure. Love those things, but they're not cheap. So I want to compare those to what was my original item go-to before I received the Vex speed pins, the Sorinex short band pegs, which are a completely underrated piece of gym equipment. I don't know if you even know what I'm talking about when I say short band pegs from Sorinex.
I have an idea in my head, but we have the technology, so I'm just going to look them up.
It's worth a Google.
And there's always the Google machine. This is part. I know this is like off topic. This is part of what I like doing on this is just completely random. Dude, yeah, those are money. Completely random screen shares to give people a little bit of context.
Yeah, so those, you get, I think it's about 1.5 inches. They extend out past the upright.
Yeah, look at that. There we go.
And yeah, it's $32 for a pair. Sorinex shipping is a joke. This is going to be probably $15 to $20 in shipping, but you're still talking about $45, $50 per pair. So 20, 25 per each. Same functionality as the Rogue attachment post, just not nearly as refined.
Yeah.
That's a pair. So you got 2 pairs in there.
Oh, that's 2 pairs. Gotcha. So I was just about to put in and figure out what my shipping is going to be. And then I'm like, you know what? I don't want to have to redact my address in post.
Yeah, so that's fair. That's fair. I can tell you, I could probably go back and look. I want to say when I ordered them, they were like $30 for a pair. It was a few years ago, so they might have gone up a little bit. And it was like $16 or $18 in shipping. From Columbia, South Carolina to where I am outside of Winston-Salem, I mean, it's 3 hours away. So, again, not the greatest shipping rate.
I wanted to actually talk to you about that a little bit. So I was just at my little brother's wedding about a year ago, 2 years ago. Wow, time flies. And I was in Columbia, South Carolina. So where my parents live, I'm from Minnesota, but my parents moved to Surf City, North Carolina, a minute ago. So where are you in relation to like Wilmington and Surf City area?
Wilmington is probably 3.5 hours away from me.
Okay. Are you inland?
Greensboro, Winston. I'm about 10 miles west of Winston-Salem, which is fairly much the center of the state. So you think about Greensboro, Winston-Salem, High Point. I went to school in Greensboro. I lived in High Point. After that, we moved out here in 2016. So I've been in the triad for the last, this will blow me away, 25 years. Just insane.
Yeah. Wow. My keyboard doesn't want to work. So we're just gonna not do the shipping. Yeah, that's wild that it'd be that much money. But yeah, those are pretty cool. And that's a great comparison.
Nifty little guys.
Yeah, comparison videos are like rock solid pieces of content.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I could almost do the review right now without any preparation. It's one of those situations where, do you want something that's cost effective and functional, or do you want something that's not cost effective and super bougie? Because I will say the magnetic side of the speed pins compared to the short band pegs, because I've had situations with short band pegs want to bounce in and out of I've got a carabiner that's keeping them in place. They're not coming loose, but they will shift a little bit. So for example, if you were to hook them up to your henny straps, you could have a situation where when the bar comes down, the pins go back, and then when the bar goes up, the pins jolt out. It's not quite as stable or secure.
That's actually how it is with the stock henny pins. Theirs are kind of a similar design to that Sorinex short band peg, which is why I use the Vex speed pins now. The best attachment point I've ever used with those, as far as like feeling secure, is actually from Rogue, and it's those whatever
The
the
attachment posts.
yeah, just the attachment posts. They're just nice and high quality. But I
Yeah.
went through an anti-rogue phase. It was like a puberty style YouTube phase that I went through.
Well, what's funny is I got a set of the Vex speed pins, and that's when I finally decided, you know what, I'm going to order a set of the Henny straps. 3 years ago, when I was first thinking about getting a set of Henny straps, you could only buy the entire kit. And I
Oh,
emailed Brian
gotcha.
and said, hey, because I had the Sornex short band pegs. That was one of the items that I bought, in the new gym. So 3 years ago, I said, I'm getting these for the gym. And I emailed him or messaged him on Instagram and said, hey, can you have an option for straps only? And he was like, absolutely. I'll put it on the website right now. And they sat on the website for 3 years. I'm not sure who else ordered them, but I finally decided to pull the trigger on them and say, I want the Henny straps. And now I'm kind of like, again, it's one of those things, kicking myself because they're a great training tool and I missed out on several years of using them, but I
I mean,
digress.
yeah, I was gonna say I think a lot of people are kind of the same way with the Henny straps. And there's Brian, first off, is just an absolutely cool person to talk with because he is just so flexible. Very awesome person. It's very cool to like say that I'm friends with a former NFL player.
Yeah, it's cool.
That's yeah, it's like a fun thing. So but yeah, a lot of people with the Henny straps, they just they don't look impressive or they don't quite understand. There's a lot of gym equipment that's like that where you don't really appreciate it until it's right in front of you. Some stuff that you can't touch when it's right in front of you is so Chris at Mute Metals is going to be a guest that I have on soon, and we're going to be talking about knurling. But you wanted to bring up some stuff about Chris before we started recording, and we said pause. So what's the Chris stuff?
Yeah. So I'm gonna see if I can get my timelines right here. So we closed on the house. Okay. So we closed on the house the third weekend of October. We moved in, and so it was about 4 weeks before that when I placed my 3 weeks before that when I placed my Rogue order because I didn't want it to show up before the house was done, and they were saying at that point it's going to be a 30-day lead time on shipping. I think I misspoke on that earlier. But in the few months leading up to the house being finished, I started looking at different options. And I could not convince myself that I needed stainless steel handles from Mutant Metals. They looked awesome, but they were like, it's going to be like $220 shipped for a pair of 15-inch handles. I mean, that's a big price tag for what I just figured I could use. I ordered an extra set of monster storage posts, but keyless for neutral grip pull-ups, dip handles, all those good things. And that worked for me for 3-4 months probably. I think it was January-ish, maybe February, when I said, you know what, I want a set of the neural handles from Mutant Metals. And so I ordered them, and it was $220. It was supposed to be a 12-week lead time, and it was 20.
No.
And I was so frustrated. I was so frustrated. And Chris is a great guy. So let me just preface that with I love Chris. I think that what he's doing there is awesome. When everything went down with the Rogue UDA controversy a couple of years ago, the way that all panned out, I was very happy to see that. I love what he's doing there. But from a consumer standpoint, when it's supposed to be 12 weeks and it ends up being, it might have been 22. Again, I have to go back and check. I wasn't really prepared for this, but it was much longer than anticipated. And I was just so frustrated. And then I see somebody, posted, oh, I just got my Mutant Metal handles. And I'm like, messaging them like, oh, when did you order those? And they were like, 2 months ago. And I'm like, what in the, like losing my
Yeah.
mind. And so I'm back and forth with Chris on, DMs on Instagram. He's like, yeah, I guess they had an issue at one point where they had to throw out a bunch of handles because the knurling wasn't right. I don't know, just there's a lot of challenges in that time frame because again, that's 2021, 2022. A lot of companies are still feeling the effects of the pandemic. There was still like a rampant like explosion, regarding the need for home gym equipment. And I get it. A lot of people, small shops that are just getting overloaded, everything that's involved with that. But I say all that to say that when they finally arrived and I held those handles in my hand, completely worth the wait. Completely worth the wait. They are phenomenal. Absolutely
Yeah.
phenomenal.
He turns a good neural. That's why I wanted to have him on to talk. One of the things that I'm trying to figure out is like what attracted me to Chris was he does such a good job and he understands so much. When people ask me questions that are about knurling on a video I do, so I did the black diamond versus the double black diamond bar. Somebody messaged me and they asked about how to make volcano knurling because I had always heard manufacturers say that with volcano knurling, you form the knurl and then you knock the tips off. And I don't remember where I heard that. I can't like cite my sources. And I say it during the video. And somebody said, "Hey, is that actually how it happens?" And I was like, "You know what? I have no idea. Let me get back to you." And I messaged Chris and I was like, "Hey, Chris, could I get wave tops on how volcano knurl is made?" And I told him what I said, and he's like, "Well, no, that's not always correct." He's like, "Some companies will do that, but that's not actually how it's done. It's actually just not a fully depressed neural pattern. So when you turn in the neural, they just don't push the tool as far in to get a full depth cut." And I was like, "Oh."
Interesting.
So, and then there was also like 20 paragraphs of information. And I'm like, "Chris, like we need to talk neural," because I've gone to Chris before because I would love to work on a project. I've been trying to find an engineer that would work with me on a project where we figure out how to quantify neural. And I don't know how many tests that means. I don't know what that is, but I'm a data nerd and a exercise science nerd. And so I'm trying to figure out if I can, like, can I 3D print a vise that you put a torque wrench on and we see at what torque that it breaks, and then can we measure volumetric displacement of your hand? How do we do that? Do we use some sort of clay? So that was my whole premise of having Chris on, is I just want to talk to him about that because Chris is a very, very deep fountain of knowledge on machining,
Absolutely.
and he understands the engineering side of the house. We the last time we talked about it, we went off for like 20 minutes on what kind of material could we use to like mimic a hand. So if you're going to measure brake force on or brake free force on a knurl, shouldn't you use a hand? And I'm like, I don't know, like maybe. So we were talking about like, I guess, different stuff that mimics a hand, like pigskin or something.
Yeah, the other thing I'm thinking about is replicating a back, like an upper back on a low bar
Yeah,
squat. I mean, that neural
yeah,
that's digging into your back, like either. I mean, that's a situation where you don't want the neural slipping or giving way. So yeah,
yeah,
it's
exactly.
interesting. Hmm.
And so that's what I'm trying to do, because like Gluck had his cat tongue thing, which is funny. Like everybody has like their funnies. I think that Adam at Garage Gym Lab, I think he did something with it. Even Coop at Garage Gym Reviews did something. You have to say it like that, otherwise you get sued. But I'm joking, that's not true. But yeah, like I think Coop had like barbell knurl. There was like 4 barbell knurls with quantifying the neural, and I'm like, I don't know, I think we can do better than this. And barbells are hard
Yeah,
to differentiate. Like I've got several powerlifting bars, and when I feel them, I can feel the difference, which is another reason you should get to Home Gym Con, because they're all there. But when you feel the difference and then I'm trying to
nice flow.
explain the difference through a camera, it's just difficult. So yeah, KLT, use it. It all goes straight to
It,
the EOD Warrior Foundation.
it is very different and it's very difficult without getting your hands. It's one of those things I actually didn't have and I probably still don't now have a full grasp of, because I bought a high power bar in 2018, I
Hey,
guess,
buddy.
and that's been my daily driver since then. I've never gone down the rabbit hole. I've got plenty of different barbells,
Yep,
but as far as a power bar goes, I've got one, and I actually have a sumo deadlift bar. I don't know if you have seen one of those before, but
I
the
have.
knurling is in the center. Knurling's
Yep.
in the center. There's no knurling to the outside, and it's a full strip of knurling in the middle, which for me, being a smaller guy, is great because I can actually get my hands in a much more comfortable position to pull. Because in a power bar, I've got to go a little bit wider, and it works, but it's not as comfortable as coming in another 2 inches on each hand. But the knurling on that deadlift bar, I would consider it passive at this point after using a power bar, after using the Mutant Metals stainless
Oh
handles.
yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
mean, it's for a deadlift bar, it's not nearly as aggressive as what I would have expected. When I first got it, I'm like, I mean, it's going to work, but that's definitely, I was expecting it to eat my hands up, and it doesn't.
No, no, it does well. And again, it's that balance of like the masochist barbell owner who just wants the aggro 10 Which, to be honest, like the novelty of, I understand, but I don't like it as much. Like I much prefer like a grippier, bitier bar to a dragon tooth. I still think they're
Right.
fun. Don't get me wrong. Whenever I go to the Rogue HQ, because I live, just 2 hours down the road, basically, I'll go check out, the Agro 55 on equipment though. So I see Rogue, I see Elite FTS with the camber bar. I'm pretty sure.
Here you
See,
go.
see the bamboo bar. So I see I think a Titan SSB, but for the most part, you have a very made in USA gym. Now, is that intentional, or is that just because when you did your first order, it was the $5,000 shipping?
Great question. It was more intentional when I went into planning and building out this gym. So, for example, the Elite FTS bar, and the Titan SSB were the only two barbell, and the high power bar were the only three barbells that I kept from the old gym. That's not entirely accurate. I did have a Titan axle bar, which at the time I was like, an axle bar is an axle bar. Why would you ever want anything different? And then I got a knurled axle bar from Dean at Black Widow Training Gear, and it changed my mind. I love that thing. But I only had a few bars. I had, most of those bars, again, I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but just above the Titan SSB is the Strong Arm Sport Sumo Deadlift Bar.
Okay.
Above that is Primal Armor Appalachian Bar.
There you go.
That bar has changed my life. I'm going to do a review on that very soon because I love that bar so much. The Power Bar, Beater Bar from Titan. We will not go down that rabbit hole tonight. Black Widow Training Gear, Neural Axle, Earthquake Bar, and then obviously the Elite FTS SSB. But yeah, so most of the stuff is made in USA. A big chunk of that came from the Rogue order. But for example, when I was looking at pulley systems, there were a lot of different variables that I was trying to figure out. I will say this, I think I said this in my review. At the time, there were not all of the options that there are now for rack mounted pulley systems. You had the Slinger, which was a disaster, and I was well known at that point, but you didn't have the Buffalo Bully Glider. I actually William Strength was the first company that I saw that had a rack mounted trolley system. And I tried to get them to sell me just the trolley system without anything else, and they wouldn't do it. And then that was actually great because that led me to Surplus Strength, and that's I've been very, very happy with that. But then when you look at things like the Mutant Metals handles, I'm trying to think what else. A lot of the
What's your open trap bar?
Open trap bar, that is a giant lifting open trap bar.
Gotcha.
That cost me $0 because you're going to love this. Garage Gym Experiment did a giveaway in 2020. What's been 2021?
2021.
2021.
Wow. Okay.
It was the summer. It was July of either 2021 or 2022. I honestly can't remember. The only reason I know it was July, though, is because I had COVID. It was the first time I had gotten COVID, and I was hurt up bad in the bed. And I got the notification that I had won the giveaway. And I was like,
oh, nice.
Thank goodness. And I love that thing. That open trap bar, I had actually decided after reviewing everything, because I was looking for open trap bar, I was going to buy it if I didn't win it in that giveaway. Because to me, it was like $300 at the time. Again, it's imported, but I like to buy American when I can, made in the USA when I can, but I'm not gonna not buy something that's imported if it checks the boxes. I'll say it that
absolutely.
way. So if there's certain criteria that I'm looking for, like the Titan SSB is still one that if I was going to buy an SSB today, I'd still buy that one for the price, for the functionality. I mean, it's a yoke clone, but of course, I got it for $190 shipped back in 2019. So that, also helps its cause.
Well, for sure. I only asked because like my experience again, and it's what I like talking about what I like talking about with you is looking at where you're at in your gym build. And you've had a gym for a long time. I think your first gym post that I found on your Instagram is from 2016. So you've been at it for a hot minute. But when I first started, I was very much
2013 is when I'm sorry. 2013 is when I first started training from home because it was right before my daughter was born. And I was like, okay, I know it's going to be chaotic. Canceled the YMCA membership, got the power blocks, adjustable bench, and some bands, and then bought my first rack at the end of 2014. And then again, started posting shortly after that. So the posting thing didn't really, it was a gradual thing for me. So, which I kind of regret because it would have been cool to have some pictures of that original. But anyway, sorry.
It would have been cool. I still go down that path too. I actually have a hard drive that's floating around in my house, and it's got pictures of when I first started, and I got a Boneyard Rogue SM1. So like the squat stand monster #1. And that was my first one. I got it for like $200. And it was because none of the paint matched. It was like somewhere in between textured powder coat and glossy powder coat. It was just obviously a screw up. But I used that thing forever. It was so short I couldn't get a pull-up bar on it. And I didn't know anything about home gyms, and it was just building it from scratch. But again, I started off very much focused on made in USA, and I thought that's what I wanted to do. But I'm in the same boat where it's if it checks the boxes and does the things that I need it to do. Like you, I prefer that it be made in USA when it can be, and if I can't afford it, then I can't afford it. And for the record, that does extend to as many things as I can, like the pants I'm wearing
for sure
are grown in USA and then harvested in USA and then shipped up to Maine and made in USA. So yes, to all the haters, my iPhone is made in Taiwan, but my jeans are made in America.
Well, to me, it's cool. It's cool to support the small businesses. Jason at Surplus Strength and I have built a friendship over the years. I mean, I messaged him when I first got my UPS because the UPS low, wasn't lining up on the bottom cross member. And he was great at helping me out. Again, that was 3 years ago. And we've been in contact talking some capacity every week since. And so that's the kind of thing that you don't get when you go with a bigger company, whether it's imported or, like Rogue, for example, is, made in America, but you're not going to build that relationship with Bill Henniger. Like that's not going to happen.
I tried. It didn't work.
Nice. So that aspect of it is cool. But at the same time, I'm not rolling in money. So I've got to make decisions that, if it makes sense to spend a little bit more, I will. If it doesn't, I'm not going to.
Yeah. What's the most impressive piece of gym equipment that you have? Like what's if you had to, there's a fire and you can only save one thing. And I know what you're going to say, that my rack will live, but no, you have to pick one thing.
Man, that's a tough one.
I know, it's like choosing a favorite kid.
I know, but see, that's easy though. I have a favorite kid. I'm just kidding. No, I can't answer that, Kurt. That's just too many things.
We'll tell you what, I'll rephrase the question.
Off the top of my head, the Stealth Spotters from Surplus Strength, when those first arrived, the quality blew me away.
For sure, yeah.
I expected greatness from Jason, and I was still like blown away. Like the welds, the powder coat, just the build, everything is just like holy shit! Like these things are awesome.
Yeah, I'm with you, because I remember when I paid for mine and they finally arrived, and I was in the same boat where I was like, I am so happy that I have these. So let's say that there's a fire, and you have not determined which child in your gym that you're going to save, but there's a piece that you hate, and it's that piece that when you run in, you're going to trip over it as you're trying to get to your favorite piece. Well, what's the piece that you would throw into the fire to make it bigger?
I do have an answer for you on the one piece that I would save in a second. The piece that I would trip over to get rid of, you know what it is? I can tell you, you're going to love this. It's my Rogue adjustable box squat, the one that's like 85 pounds.
Yeah.
Because it's so massive. Do you know what I sold as part of my old gym when I was planning to upgrade to that?
Tell me you sold a TDS box squat. Shut up. No way.
I sure did.
No way.
Yes way. I know you have one. I know you have. I know. So that's the thing. I'm like, oh, did you get rid of it?
I broke that thing. It eventually broke. Yep. It was a sad day. Man, it was an entertaining day.
I don't lift enough. That thing was perfect for me, and it was easy to move around, and it did everything that I needed to do. Now, don't get me wrong, the Rogue is awesome, but if you can catch any of my Instagram videos of me like lat pull down from the back, you'll see how big that box is compared to like my ass and how much I'm actually sitting on. Like I didn't need a box like that big, but I'll tell you the one thing that I would go ahead.
No, you're good.
So the one piece that I would run in here to get is, hang on.
So while he shows that, I found a picture of him doing what he talked about on his gram. Hey, Chris, while you ran off there, I found you in that's a 24-inch box, right?
Yeah. 24 by 24.
Yep. So it's actually 1 inch.
as
It's
big as that.
1 inch smaller in both directions than the Mike Bartos Power Center one. So
Is it?
silver lining, man. That
So
thing's
this is
tiny
my.
compared to the Power Center one. So that's the
So this is my. I'm gonna Clever by Ghost Genesis jack.
I remember that.
The reason is, I'm sorry.
I remember when that happened, because wasn't that like Ghost made basically a jack, and then someone was like, "Hey, that looks like the Cleva one," and they were like,
So that's a good
"Suddenly we're
question. I
gonna."
don't know the answer to that. I only know they only made a certain number of these, and about 2 months before I was really planning to start ordering anything, they posted up, "We have 25 of these left," and I knew that I wanted one, and so I ordered it. And I think it was like the 21st, one left when I actually got
Nice.
the order placed. And it's just one of those cool pieces that, I mean, if my Ohio power bar gets burned up in a fire, I can buy a new one. Can't get another one of these.
No, it's true.
Novelty
Yep, and
item,
Ghost,
but really cool.
yeah, Ghost is no longer in business for equipment. I think the last I saw, they were still just making apparel and maybe one-off pieces
Yeah.
for special orders. And yeah, no, I think that's a solid point. And it has the added benefit of being an amazing tool if you were to be in some sort of apocalyptic situation.
Okay, and so that's not funny, or maybe it is funny, because when I'm lying in bed at night and I can't sleep, and I start
Yeah.
thinking about if somebody were to try to break into the house, I immediately think I'm going to run upstairs and grab my deadlift jack and then come off the stairs off the top rope.
Yeah, there you go. I used to say
That's
that with
funny.
my shoulder rock, and I had a Myo rock, so that's like the IASTM tool, and I was like,
Yeah,
"Now this is a weapon. Get this thing spinning."
that's funny.
So yeah, so do you have goals with the channel when it comes to the YouTube channel? Do you have certain benchmarks, goals? I would ask you, what does success look like? But yeah, what's the future? What's your intent?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have not sat down and written out exactly, what the definitive goals are. What I would say is I enjoy like posting on Instagram, little short like reviews, like mini reviews, if you will, about, especially as equipment comes into the gym, like, hey, this came in, this is awesome and here's why, or hey, I've got this piece of equipment and I use it for this, whatever. So taking, an expanded version of that and putting it on YouTube is a lot of fun for me. Now the editing portion on the back end is painful. These train with me videos, the very first one, I mean, it was an hour-long training session and it had to have taken me 2 hours at least to edit it down. It was painful. But doing the reviews themselves, talking about the equipment, and then, the work that goes into a finished product is a lot of fun. Long term, I would like to monetize it. Not going to, shy away from that truth. I would like to make some money off of it long term. But again, that's a long term piece. The one thing that I don't want to do is go down that path of just reviewing stuff and saying great things about it for the sake of getting paid, whether it be free equipment or money or whatever that looks like. I want to, the way I've described it before, the reason that I haven't gone down this venture before is I always say, I like sharing and talking about the things that I like and the things that I use. I enjoy doing that. And I feel like when there is a commission involved, whether it be intentional or unintentional, there is always some sort of confirmation bias. But I will add a caveat with that when you spend 200 stainless steel knurled handles, there's confirmation bias in that when you're talking about it. Okay, I love those handles. But when you spend money on something, in the back of your mind, you want to justify that, hey, this was a good purchase. I made a good decision here. And most of the time, I feel like we do. With that said, like, I want to review as much stuff as I can. If somebody reaches out to me and says, hey, we want to send you something for free, you do a review on it. Well, first off, I'm going to figure out, can I fit it in my space? I don't know if we talked about this or not, but I am upstairs. I don't know if you knew that or not.
You mentioned it during your self-defense episode.
Yes.
And I I wrote it down to circle back.
So this is an upstairs bonus room gym. So getting things up here, that's a variable that has to be accounted for when it comes to picking up new gym equipment, right? Which I will say, the only thing that I could not get up here by myself was the Rogue Echo bike. I had to get somebody to help me get that upstairs, taking it to the smaller pieces and upstairs. But everything else I've taken up by myself. So with that in mind, I don't know. I would like to monetize it in the future, but I don't want to shy away from what I enjoy doing, which is, I'm going to use Gluck's term, giving an honest review. And I think a lot of people say, we want to give honest reviews, but giving honest reviews of things that are going to fit into my training. I've got specific goals around my training. And if I can't see myself using it long term, I don't think it's going to be something that I really want to dive into, because it's just not, that's not going to be a good fit for me. If that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. I think that's a good thing to keep in mind as well. I can't tell you how many there's a video right now. Screw it, I'll just say, because this company's not going to watch it. When I was doing my weight loss stuff, so I lost 20 pounds in the last like 2 months or 3 months or whatever, and I've kept it off. Me and my
Nice.
wife wanted a walking stand-up desk, and so a company literally happened to reach out to me at the beginning of the year, which makes sense because they probably sell more walking mills, like those stupid little desk walking mills, than at any other time. And they were like, "Hey, we'll send you one for free." And I was like, "Oh, cool, yeah, send it." And so now I've got in my email, like on a daily basis, the lady reminding me, like, "Oh, hey, did you have that review done?" In my head, I'm like, "Why did I do this crap? Like, I should have just bought one and not had to deal with this lady bothering me." Mind you, from her perspective, she just wants what I agreed to, which I will do. But yeah, definitely a good thing to keep in mind for sure.
Right.
But yeah, an upstairs gym is definitely unique though, especially since you got that deadlift platform over there. Did you place that right there on purpose because you were like, is there like extra support there?
No,
Because
that's a
someday
good.
you're going to be deadlifting 1,000 pounds.
Right. So a couple of things. This is my third home gym. This is the third gym that I've had that's upstairs. My first gym that had a rack that was upstairs was in our probably 90-year-old house, and it was the T2, and I didn't want to put much up there besides, and of course that rack only weighs like 110 pounds. Like, it's super lightweight. And then I probably had, 300 pounds worth of plates, like not a whole lot. But in planning that gym build, like you, I'm a nerd. I really like deep dive into things, and I probably overthink things at some point. Not saying you overthink things, but I definitely do overthink things. So, for example, in our last house, the gym was in a third floor bedroom. I specifically put the platform over a support wall on the second floor, and that's where the rack was centered on that platform. Now,
Gotcha.
with this gym here, we built this house custom. We actually were able to work with the builder, and instead of putting the engineered I-beams, which will hold a ton of weight themselves, instead of being 16 inches on center, we had him put a few extra ones in there. They're 12 inches on center.
There you go.
So it will hold more weight. Now, he didn't give me, and I know why, he would never give me like hey, instead of being 40 pounds per square foot weight rating, now it's whatever, because he doesn't want to be held liable for that. I get it.
Yeah.
But whatever it is, it's more than I'm ever going to have up here. I did put the rack here close to the wall, which is the outside wall of the house, because if you think about the beams, there's going to be more flexion.
Yeah, there's going to be more strength at the edge.
Right, more strength on the edge. I'm losing the word I'm looking for.
Sag
in the middle,
or whatever.
where it's going to bend more. Well, it's not even sag, but I keep wanting to say convection, but that's not right. Regardless, it's going to be stronger on the outer edges. That's what I was looking for. So the deadlift platform went there just because that's where it fit best in the room. Plus, that's not super heavy because you got a 4x8, just 2 sheets of 4x8 plywood there that are going to be spanning multiple floor joists.
True.
The rack, there is one. So if you think about it, there's one 4x8 sheet here and there's 2 here. So the rack is actually spread out across 3 4x8 subfloor sections that are, again, spanning that. So do I think that at any point I'm going to go through the floor into the garage because the garage is below me? No, I do not think that my bonus room gym will convert into a garage gym accidentally. My main concern was sagging, things that would cause like windows not to open properly. Things like that. And the way we had this built, the way that I have methodically and intentionally spaced stuff out for the amount of weight that I'm moving and the way I have things set up, it's totally fine.
Gotcha. So what's
Famous
like a
last words?
famous? Well, hopefully not. Knock on wood. What's like a dream collab? If any company, a company of your choosing, is going to reach out to you tonight after this is done, and they're going to be like, "Hey, we want you to review this piece. We're not going to pay you because you're a small up and coming channel, but we're going to give it to you for free." What would the company be, and what would be the piece?
I know what the piece would be. Made in USA Squat Max MD.
Oh, there we go. So actually,
USA's
on that, any specific brand, because the way that Squat Max MD is working is essentially if you pay Brian the license fee, you can build a made in USA Squat Max. So here, and I have seen renders from.
Have you been in my DMs, like in my actual DMs? Because I told somebody probably in January that my dream would be to have a Black Widow training gear made Squat Max. Like the spider webs on like the corners of the frame. Yeah. Like that would be sick.
That would be sick. There was one company, because I love the Squat Max. I still own my Squat Max for everybody that's watching. It's in storage because right now I'm reviewing other things and I don't have space. My Squat Max is amazing, but I love the original look. If you go back and you look at Brian Hennessy's original Squat Max MD platform, it's like a really thick, like 1/4 inch probably plate with the hole cut in the middle, and it's got those rounded edges, and I just like that simplified, clean look. And I'm not going to say the name of the brand that showed me a render of one that they
I know who it is.
Yeah, I don't want to say because I don't know if licensing or anything.
I'll text you afterwards, but I'm pretty sure I know who it is.
But it looks so good. It looks so good. I wanted it so bad. So yeah, I get that. So a Black Widow training gear, Squat Max MD with the spider webs cut in the corners and some perfect green accents, because Dean's the custom master, man.
So here's my thing about the green. Oh my gosh. So this is hilarious. Deadlift platform. That trim was made by me taking a 24-inch cross member once the rack arrived to Sherwin-Williams. They scanned it. They found the custom color. They made me a can of it. I still have most of that can left because I only needed that much for that deadlift platform. Because Rogue uses Pantone colors. They don't use RAL colors.
Which
and they are slightly different, which is unfortunate, because if I were to say, hey, Jason, can you make me a bright green UPS? He's going to make the ROL that's closest to the Rogue Pantone, but it's not going to be the same. Now, on Instagram, it might look the same, but for my OCD, it's not going to look the same. This paint was so good. I actually had a cross member that came damaged. I touched it up, and I couldn't tell you which right now. I couldn't tell you right now which one it is. Like, it's that good. So all that to say that I'm not doing any additional green. I have my rack green, the deadlift platform to match, and then everything else is going to be blacked out when it comes in to kind of counter the bright green. So kind of not clash, but what's the word I'm looking for? Complement. Thank you, sir.
Yes. I don't know. I'm just kind of saying words out loud that begin with the letter C.
Makes sense. So yeah, that's the goal. So if it was a Black Widow, it would be blacked out, like completely, just like the current one.
Well, if you got his black texture powder coat on that thing, because that's the one part about mine, which is a made in USA one, is that I don't like the smooth platform. It's not smooth. It is like a texture powder coat, but it's nothing like Dean's. Nothing like Mike Bartos's. It just needs more.
So my plan would be to buy another sheet of 1/2-inch rubber mat like I've got on my deadlift platform, but smaller. It's got the same gray fleck pattern as my floor mats, and cut a hole in that for the top of the Squat Max.
So that's a throwback to the original Squat Max, though. Like the original Squat Maxes were that 1/4 inch, and then there was a layer of rubber that ran the perimeter all the way around. Some of the old ones had handles, and it just looked dope. It looked so freaking cool, and I loved it. And I remember when Brian Hennessy, he posted something along the lines of closing the gym, because I'm pretty sure he's not doing the gym thing anymore. I think it was like Overachieve or something like that. I can't remember the name of his gym. But when he posted that, I immediately reached out and I was like, will you sell me one of the original Squat Max MDs? Because I do like it that much. For those of you that are out there listening and wondering if I still do it. Yeah, still would do it. What's the next year look like then, as you transition on YouTube and you start to do these reviews? Your next year, not asking for a plan, but is it going to be a mix of training, and is it going to be a mix of product reviews, or what are we going to see short term?
Yeah, I think the goal, I'm going to see how this first week of the Train With Me series goes. Tomorrow's should be pretty good, because back in December of 2023, I set a goal for myself to that I wanted to trap bar deadlift 500 pounds, which again, people are going to clown me. Oh, it's a trap bar, whatever. That's fine. I don't care. It doesn't hurt my feelings at all. At this point in my life, like, you're not going to say anything to embarrass me. Like, it's fine. I'm older. I don't compete in powerlifting, but I wanted to set a goal that was going to take some work. I'm hoping that I can pull it in May during the garage gym competition. And if I do pull it that week, that will be almost 18 months of working towards that goal. And so for me, that's kind of cool to look at a big picture goal like that and say, I worked consistently for this amount of time to reach this goal. So tomorrow's Train With Me session is going to be focused around that, gearing up to training to try to hit that 500-pound trap bar deadlift, which again, I'll make the argument that what's the trap bar or not, like 500 pounds is 500 pounds. Like, that's not,
Oh yeah. Nobody that actually knows nobody that knows what they're talking about is going to argue that. And I will,
right.
I'll fight people in public on this one. Yeah.
Thanks.
Trust me. Yeah. 500 pounds is 500 pounds. A straight bar versus a trap bar deadlift is all sport specificity. Like, get effed. It's still amazing.
Yeah. So I want to see how this first week of the Train With Me content goes. Like, is there actually some traction in that? Because again, like I said, the editing on that is pretty time consuming. It was better on the second one. Tomorrow should be better as well. But if that's not really what people want to see, I'm probably not going to do a lot of it. I'll just keep posting that kind of stuff on Instagram, which seems to be pretty popular there. But from a content perspective, I definitely want to do reviews once a week. I want to work in some hack videos, probably do those more on the shorts like I do on Instagram, like I did today. I posted that on Instagram and then I posted it on YouTube following that. People love hacks. And you and I both know, like, they're fun to try to figure out. So I guess the short answer is I'd just like to continue to try to make some more content, try to do one review a week. Maybe do some more Train With Me type videos. I'll probably put out some more feelers on Instagram to see what kind of content people are looking for and see how that aligns with what I enjoy doing. I think that's the balancing point, is doing what you enjoy doing while also putting out the content that people want to see.
I think that's a good answer. Final question. Let me see if I can pull up a visual aid while I ask it. So I'm blessed to be in a position where I go and I coach at this thing called Players Box. And we were talking to some middle school kids in my group this week, and they're athletes and high academics. We're talking about like that tip of the iceberg graphic that everybody tries to use, and I'm trying to find it. I found it so easy the other day, and I failed now. But basically, with the tip of the iceberg, you have what we see. So what we see when we see Chip is what we see on Instagram. We see a beautiful home gym. We see nice lighting. It's obviously climate controlled. You're not like me where you have to suffer in the heat and the cold. We see that you did rugby. We see that you have a family. We can see all of these accomplishments that you have. But what we don't see below the waterline is everything that you had to do to get those achievements done. So that might be failure, it might be struggle, it might just be hard work and consistency and discipline. If you could pick something that's below the waterline, if you will, and to be clear, no, Chip has not seen this question before we came into it, but if you could pick like one of those things that nobody ever sees, but you want people to see that, what would you pick?
Oh, wow. That's a pretty deep question here, Kurt.
Sorry. Yeah, I got to try at least asking one. If it makes you feel any better, you're the first person I've asked this question to.
That's a good one. No, that's a good one. So now everybody else can have time to prepare for it.
Exactly.
This is probably not a great
answer,
the graphic. But okay, I know which one you're talking about. Let's see it. Make sure it is the one I'm thinking about.
This is the one that we show the kids.
Yeah. I would say, this is not really a great answer because there is a lot of this that's seen. But because I'm pretty diligent, I feel, at posting on Instagram my training sessions, even if it's just a story about what I did. But for me, it's the consistency.
Okay.
In my role, in my previous role with my last company, I treated work the same way that I treat my training, doing things the right way. Integrity has always been a big, important thing for me, and that's always been defined. I had one of my old managers define it as, integrity is doing the right thing when no one's looking. And so for me, that's always been a big thing of trying to do the right thing when no one's looking. That's one reason why I probably do share as much training on Instagram as I do, is because it almost gives me an accountability partner, if you will. I had that drive, I had that desire to train, to stay healthy, for myself and for my family. But at the same time, it's just like if you were going to a commercial gym and you saw the same group of guys every morning at 5 a.m. or every evening at 6 p.m. You see those group of guys, day in and day out, they kind of become your accountability partners. The home gym community, the small group of people that follow me and, like my posts as I post them daily, sometimes ad nausea. Those are my accountability partners. Those are the folks that, reached out when I hurt my back pretty bad back in 2022, sending me DMs like, hey, how you doing? How's the recovery coming? Those are my, as my wife calls them, my internet friends. And I love that aspect of the community. And so for me, I feel like the consistency of training and working hard and having goals and working towards those, and then knowing that either, whether directly or indirectly, there are people there that are there to help hold you accountable. So,
I love that. No, I think that's a solid answer, Chip. You're going to say it's not a solid answer. That's a solid answer.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, everybody. So that's pretty much it. I always try to give you the last word. So, Chip, what's the last word?
The last word, I just want to thank you, Kirk. I really appreciate you having me on. It's been a pleasure talking to you, getting a little bit of camera time. I know we chat a lot on DM and text messages, but to actually get to talk to you a little bit has definitely been enjoyable for me. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
The same thing goes from me right back to you as well. I enjoy your space, enjoy your content. It's amazing the amount of amazing people. Double amazing, right? It's just so exceptional to be in a community of a bunch of people from their homes that are messaging random men and women that train at home. And we're all really good people. We all just really like our houses. So that's been it for this episode, though. So please go to Instagram. If you don't already subscribe to Chip on Instagram, he is Figjam_exerciser. It'll be linked down below as well. Go check out his YouTube channel. Definitely subscribe and do the YouTube things, people. And one of the big things I try to do, especially with new people on YouTube, is I try to support the people that make this kind of content. So do the like, do the comment. Even if you just say checking in for the algorithm, I get that comment every once in a while from people. Do that. Help Chip out. Give him some engagement. Give him some subscribers. Let's see if we can't get him monetized so that he too can make tens of dollars, just like me. On YouTube.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's pretty much it, though. Chip, I appreciate you taking the time. And to all of you out there, I'll see you next week. Oh,
thanks, buddy.
wrong button. I hit